Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryankaravavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्. So yesterday we saw till here, Atmas are not many. Birth and death in terms of the vision of the Gita. I think we'll do a little bit of recap before we go further. न त्वेवाहं जातु नासं न त्वं नेमे जनाधिपाः न चैव न भविष्यामः सर्वे वयमतः परम्. Says, there was never a time that I did not exist, nor you, nor these kings, nor will any of us cease to exist in the future. Just a second. So, if all these people are going to die, how can it be said that they do not cause sorrow for the bereaved? Surely, since they are going to die, they must be the cause of sorrow, shocha. Even those who are not in the battlefield are shochas because they too are eventually going to die. Addressing this doubt, Krishna shifted the discussion to the vision of Atma. His statements were not meant as an argument to kill, but rather to provide an understanding of Dharma so that what was to be done could be done. Since Arjuna also wanted absolute Shreyas, Krishna talked about the nature of Atma. He said, there is no time that I did not exist. This is one thing that most people actually misinterpret. Is saying, how could Krishna ask Arjuna to kill, do such a heinous activity? But this was not what Krishna meant. He wanted to give Arjuna the highest knowledge, that is of the Atmajnana. And the argument, therefore, was not to kill, the argument was to do his dharma. So that what was to be done could be done. He said, there is no time that I did not exist. To say that I did not exist at some time is not true. I always existed. Krishna was obviously, therefore, not an ordinary person. He was an avatara. He could say, I always existed. Could the same thing be said of a jiva like Arjuna? Krishna said, that you did not exist before is also not true. You too always existed. Being a prince, Arjuna was also not an ordinary person. Krishna therefore went on to say that all the stalwarts standing before them on the battlefield, leaders of the people, chieftains, commanders in chief, and all the other soldiers had also always existed. What Krishna was saying in this verse is that all of us are eternal. I was therefore before, and you were there before, as were all these other people. In his vision, they were all there before. The next question would be, what about later? We might have existed before, but we might not exist later. Will there be a time in the future when I am not? Krishna says, no. After the destruction of the body, you will continue to exist. Birth and death in terms of the vision of the Gita. We have a concept that everyone is born and we have a horoscope to prove it. We know that we were born at a given time and take this to mean that there was a time when we were not. This is a very well entrenched notion about the I, that I was born, that I am getting old, that I am going to die, and so on. If you are born, you will naturally get old. The notion that you are getting old is going to be there as long as you think you are born. So we have that fundamental error, the notion that we think we are born. And therefore, that I am going to die, that I am getting old, becomes true, becomes real to us, seems real to us. In the vision of the Gita, there is no such thing as birth for you. Such an emphatic statement. In the vision of the Gita, there is no such thing as birth for you. Atma, I, is not born. The notion that I am born is negated here by using double negatives. That we celebrate the birthday of Krishna does not confirm the non existence of Krishna before. It only confirms that on this particular day, in this particular form, Nama Rupa, Krishna was born. To say that he was born in this Nama Rupa is correct and creates no problems. But to say that Krishna was not there before, despite what people might think, is not true. Therefore, Krishna was not really born. He was as though born. Krishna went on to say that it is also not true to think that you were not there before. There was no time that you were not there. Krishna told Arjuna that he too essentially was timeless and that everyone else was as eternal, as existent as Krishna was. Similarly, we always think that we will not exist later, a conclusion that calls for lamentation. This notion is also not true, Krishna said. Whatever form you take yourself to be, you definitely exist. As an individual jiva or atma, you definitely exist. The jivatva, individuality, may not exist later, but as atma, you will always exist. Because the Jivatva goes when a person is enlightened, only Atma is meant to be taken here. It is in this sense that Krishna said to Arjuna, there was never a time when I was not. There was never a time when you were not. Nor was there ever a time when all these leaders were not. Similarly, there will never be a time when all of us will not be. Does this mean then that this fluid will continue forever because all these Atmas are going to be eternally there? No. The use of the plural here was only with reference to forms, upadhis. There was never a time when we were not there, nor will there ever be a time when we will not be there. We can use pots and pot space as an example. The pots will come and go, but all the pot spaces will always be there because there is only one space. The words used in this verse, I, aham, you, tvam, we, vayam, kings, janadipaha, are all with reference to the bodies seemingly enclosing one Atma, like many pots enclosing one space. उपसमीपे स्थित्वा स्वीयं धर्मं रूपम् अन्यत्र आदधाति iti upadhihi. That which imparts its qualities to another by staying close to it is called an upadhi. Atmas are not many. Makes this important observation here in the last line of his commentary, Bhashya, Deha Bheda Anuvritya Bahuvachanam na Atma Bheda Abhiprayena. The plural has been used here with reference to the various bodies and not with reference to the one Atma, the self. See, it's so important to rightly interpret what Gita is saying, and Shankara did that so beautifully. He did not say because several Atmas were mentioned that there are several Atma. He says, Deha Bheda Anuvritya Bahuvachanam. So the Bahuvachanam, the plural, was only meant for the Deha, for the bodies. Na Atma Bheda Abhiprayena. And it is not with reference to the one Atma, the self. The people standing before Krishna and Arjuna all had different physical bodies. Only from the standpoint of the physical bodies, there is plurality, not from the standpoint of Atma. There are no differences in Atma. It is not that a Krishna Atma existed, an Arjuna Atma existed, and other Atmas existed. And all of these, having existed before, will continue to exist forever. That is not the contention here at all. Atmas are not many. There is only one Atma. Atma that is not subject to time. Nitya Atma, being without form and attributes, can only be one. Anitya, that which is subject to time, means anything that has a form with attributes, with an upadhi. Only then can it be subject to time. But an Atma that is subject to time is not the Atma we are talking about. Atma is the very basis, the adhisthana of time, and therefore is not subject to time. Because it is not subject to time, it is nitya. I just would pause here. If you remember in chapter 18, um, the sattvic, not the sattvic dhriti, but um, the sattvic intellect looks at everybody. Sattvic jnana is what? There are different types of jnana also, sattvic, rajasic, tamasic. So the jnana that there is only one. Seeing the one in diversity, that is sattvic jnana. And that is what is being expounded here, saying there are different bodies, yes, at that level of the upadhi, at the level of the body, but then there is only one Atma running in and through them. Because the forms upadhis are many, there are many people, whereas Atma is one whole consciousness, Chaitanya, not bound by time. In that consciousness alone is my mind, your mind, and any other mind. These minds differ, as do the bodies. When we count, the bodies are many, but not from the standpoint of consciousness, chit. Thus, what is necessary is the negation of a notion. Instead of telling Arjuna that Atma is Nitya, thereby creating a concept in his mind, Krishna removed the notion of his being time bound. When we are told that Atma is eternal, we think of Atma as having a long, long life. Here, instead, the concept of Atma being time bound is knocked off. It is negated. There was never a time when I, you, or anyone else was not. Nor will there be a time when we will not be. Atma being timeless. Since you cannot cry for the timeless, Atma is not a cause for sorrow. Something that is going to be eternal, eternally present. Where is the question of sorrow? Sorrow comes when there is the body or whoever, the object of shochya, the shochya disappears or something happens to it. But here it is time bound. It's boundless. It's not bound by time. It is eternal. Even if you want to stop this present second, sorry, where did I go? Nor will there be a time. There was never a time when I, you, or anyone else was not. Nor will there be a time when we will not be. Atma being timeless. Since you cannot cry for the timeless, Atma is not a cause for sorrow. It is Ashochya. Anatma alone is subject to change. It is Anitya. Even if you want to stop this present second, you cannot because it is already gone. Therefore, crying for Anatma is foolish. Both Atma and Anatma, therefore, are Ashochya. So, on one side, we have the Atma, which is changeless and timeless, and on the other, we have the Anatma, which is time bound and is changing all the time. Nitya versus Anitya, Satya versus Mithya. Both are Ashochya. Both are not cause for sorrow. Therefore, sorrow itself has no basis. There is no legitimacy for sorrow. Anything time bound is always time bound. You cannot expect constancy from something whose nature is change itself. But that is our human problem. We want everything to be the same, right? We want people to behave the same way with us. We want the situation to remain the same. But that the nature itself is that of change. If you are aggrieved or sad because something that changes by nature is not constant, what you need is proper understanding of the nature of Atma and Anatma, neither of which is a matter for sorrow. Either way you take it, this fact remains. Therefore, the first line of the previous verse becomes increasingly true as our understanding of Atma and Anatma increases. That was what? Ashochan Anvashochastvam Prajnavadamscha Bhashase. Gatasun Agatasumscha Nanushocanti Panditaha. How through logic it is brought down that there is no cause for sorrow, either the Atma, neither the Atma nor Anatma. Both are not a cause for sorrow.
Can you read last three lines, please, again?
Anything time bound is always time bound. You cannot expect constancy from something whose nature is change itself. If you are aggrieved or sad because something that changes by nature is non constant, what you need is proper understanding of the nature of Atma and Anatma, neither of which is a matter of sorrow, neither of which is a matter for sorrow. Either way you take it, this fact remains. Therefore, the first line of the previous verse becomes increasingly true as our understanding of Atma and Anatma increases. So there is no basis for sorrow at all. All that sadness we go through is only because of confusion, because of aviveka, of wrong understanding. Before we go to the next verse, do you want to do Manana on this before we move on?
Yes, Brahmaraji.
Yeah. I'm just reminded of how Gurudev has put in the gist of the Gita in our happiness program. The questions that we ask, as in, who are you, where are you, and what are you, and when were you born? When did you?
You know all, he says, no, I know all lifetimes, and you don't know. That also touched this reading when you were reading this, no?
Yeah.
Can we compare the knowledge of our Kshetrajna and Kshetra here? Um,
Yeah.
because all the limitations of Anatma are the same limitations of Kshetra. And all the aspects,
Timelessness.
timelessness and Satchitananda, that is Swarupa Lakshana, are the for Kshetrajna also.
Mm.
But still it is so, it is so important to live in the present moment,
Mm.
because we get bound to the things which are situations, things, people which are changing every moment, and we expect them to remain the same all the time. Very beautiful.
Very true. You know, someone said the past and the future is Maya. The present is Nitya, which is what Gurudev says. Present is not just a fleeting moment. The present moment has a depth of its own. Isn't it? So when we go to the past or the future, there is sorrow, there is either regret or anxiety, and you're off balance.
Very true, very true. And all the time mending that.
Mm. Anger in one stroke goes off when you stop living in the past. Because all anger is nothing but you're angry about what happened. It's already something has happened, but you're holding on to it because it is not according to what you want. So the statement that Swamiji gave earlier, only an angry person becomes angry. So if a person is living in the moment, there is no question of him getting angry. He is a happy person. And which is what enlightenment is. Enlightenment is being in the present, just being in the present.
It's very infinite. Present is infinite. So deep into it. Everything lies in the present. The whole knowledge, all, everything.
So, natvam neme, natve vaham jatu nasam, natvam neme janadipaha, nachaiva nabhavishyamaha, sarve vayamataf param. So, neither did I not exist before, not that I will not exist later. I always existed. And that I applies to you and all of us. What is not is only the upadhi, the body, the physical body, the mind. And upadhi is something that lends its quality because of its close association.
Brahmaraji, is it possible to just read that Upadhi definition once? That I'm really sorry to.
No problem, no problem. See, the reason why we're kind of repeating some of these or most of these is because it is not like we just want to complete it. No, we want to get the knowledge and understand properly. So absolutely fine. उपसमीपे स्थित्वा स्वीयं धर्मं रूपम् अन्यत्र आदधाति इति उपाधिः. That which imparts its qualities to another by staying close to it is called an upadhi. उपसमीपे स्थित्वा स्वीयं धर्मं रूपम् अन्यत्र आदधाति इति उपाधिः. And in the verse that in the beginning, the paragraph, it says, in the vision of the Vedanta, in the vision of Gita, Atma is not born. But the notion is that I am born, I am getting old, and I will die. Whereas truth is, it is only the Upadhi which is born. Krishna in the Nama Rupa is born on Janmashtami. It's seemingly born. But the Atma that is eternal is never born. And then there are not many Atmas. The Atma that is in me is the same as in you, as in everybody else. Like the Ghatakasha, Akasha.
Jai Gurudev, then why they say Jivatma and Paramatma so different? If there's only one, why it is said like that? I'm wondering.
Forms, Jivatma.
Okay.
It is like the pot space, no? Jivatma is like the space in the pot, which is bound by the body, which is bound by the pot. Whereas the Atma, the space which is in the pot and outside the pot is the same. So Jiva is what is the Atma which is bound, which is kind of limited by this physical upadhi. Physical body is Jivatma. Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya Jivo Brahmaiva Naparaha. So the Jiva is not separate from Brahma. Jiva is not separate from Atma. There is only one Atma, so where can there be any separation? The seeming separation, the seeming differences, the seemingly different physical bodies are all only based on the Upadhi. And Maya is an Upadhi for the whole of creation. And that is why we see the differences. If we are caught up in Maya, we see difference, which is why the Sattvic Jnana is you see beyond the differences. You see the one in the many. Rajasic Jnana sees the differences. Tamas Jnana looks at only yourself. I mean, very self-centered, like in the body. You're glued to your body, physical body, and you're bound by it. So the Sattvic Jnana is that Atma is one, is whole, is consciousness. So you have the five things: Nama Rupa, Asti Bhati Priti, Nama Rupa. So Asti Bhati Priti are eternal, whereas Nama Rupa is what keeps changing.
Here, along with Upadhi, even the Roop and the Dharmam also, it is Adadhati. Means that's what Dharmam, Rupam, Swiyam Dharmam, Rupam. I mean, self-imposition is, and we start implementing also in the same way. It is just not only we are bound by only the shape and the form, but even the actions we do like that, as if we are mortal.
The rope behaving like snake. All the qualities of the snake is imparted on the rope. That is Upadhi, Maya.
So here Krishna did not say directly, no, he didn't just say that Atma is Nitya. Atma is Nitya. The emphasis is also on that negation. That how he negated, he's about to negate, like he'll describe this. This is not this, like starting with that we've read in the previous verse, no? Nan, the word nan, Nashochyan. So this is also an important aspect of this verse. Very true. Because he did not want to give that concept to Arjuna that Atma is eternal. He could have just said Atma is Nitya. He didn't talk of that. He brought him back to his body and told him, it is not that it is not true that I never existed before, neither did you. So he's bringing his level from the level of the body, is taking him to the the truth that Atma is eternal. Yeah, timeless. Timelessness. Yeah. And he's bringing into the proper understanding of what is changing. The upadhi is changing. What is nitya and what is anitya. See, ultimately, knowledge is what proper understanding. Getting that clarity. Not just concept building. Concept building, I mean, we can just build up a concept. That is not going to help at all, right? Clear understanding is what is essential to remove that confusion. Otherwise, it only becomes like a dictate, a mandate.
Actually, these two words are the only Bhagavad Gita. Everything is, other thing is explanation only. Clarity, clearing the doubts. These two words, 11 and the 12th, is the complete Bhagavad Gita actually. Now everything, because it has to go through, it has to be studied, it has to be understood. All the 18 chapters are. Very good.
So we'll move forward. The constancy of the Atma. Krishna provided an example in the verse to help Arjuna understand how Atma is always the same and never changes. Dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara tatha dehantara praktihi dhirastatra na muhyati. Yatha, just as, Dehinaha, for the indweller of the body, Asmin Dehe, in this body, Kaumaram, childhood, Yavvanam, youth, Jara, old age, Tatha, so also, Deha Antara Praptihi, the gaining of another body, Tatra, there, with reference to that, Dhiraha, a wise person, Na Muhyati, is not deluded. Yatha dehinah asmin dehe kaumaram yavvanam jara tatha deha antara praptihi tatra dhirah na muhyati. Just as how, for an indweller of this body, the jiva, there is childhood, youth, and old age, so too is the gaining of another body. With reference to that, a wise person does not come to grief. Where does the person, the jiva, exist? The jiva, the one who makes the body conscious, is the indweller of this body. In other words, the jiva referred to in this verse as the dehi is nothing but Atma with a body, mind, and senses. In this verse, Krishna referred to the threefold states that the body undergoes, each of which is distinct from the other two. For instance, in boyhood, there is no need for shaving, whereas in youth and adulthood there is. Nor is a person likely to require a cane in either of these two states, unlike in old age. When childhood passes, does the one dwelling in the body survive or not? If there were no survivor, an old man could not talk about his earlier exploits and accomplishments. His voice is certainly no longer the voice of his boyhood, having become very shaky due to the changes brought about by age. But the I is the same. The I is solid, not shaky. Thus, the one who was in childhood is the one who was in youth and is the one who is now. That I does not change at all. As each state comes and goes, the I remains the same. Although each state is destroyed, the Atma is never destroyed. The body is said to undergo a metamorphosis every 7 years, but the person remains the same. The birth of a later state does not imply a new birth and a new life for the person, the Atma. Nor does death of the previous state spell death for the Atma. These states come and go, and Atma remains the same in a given body. The same Atma sees all three states: childhood, adulthood, and old age. One need only ask an elderly person what he or she had for lunch. In response to this simple question, an elderly man may start with his first marriage. The Atma is the same through all the experiences of life. Just as each of these states is taken for the Atma, another body can also be taken for the Atma, even though Atma itself remains the same. Just as how a person does not remember his or her first 3 years, in the same way, previous lifetimes in other bodies are also not remembered, which is just as well, since there would be only that many more problems. If we all knew our own and each other's previous births, we would be blaming people from those lifetimes just as we do in this one. There would then be far too many situations and people to blame. Known or unknown, Atma is the same, be it with reference to the first 3 years of this birth or to previous births. Thus, from the standpoint of Atma, there is no reason for sorrow born of self decimation. It is the same even from the standpoint of the simple jiva, the one who has a body. Where is the reason then for getting into a state of delusion that I will be absent at any time? The jiva will continue with or without a body. Without a body, there is no problem. I am Atma and therefore timeless. As a jiva, gaining a new body gives you a new and better start. If you did not make proper use of the previous body, now you can make better use of the new one. The wise have no sorrow. Because a wise person has the knowledge of Atma and Anatma, there is no question of he or she being sorrowful. Such a person knows that what does not change cannot be changed, and what changes cannot be stopped. When the facts are clear, there is no sorrow. The wise person is one who knows what is real, Atma, and what is unreal, Anatma. Further, Krishna said, we go on to the next verse. So we'll park it here and then do Manana before we go on to the next verse. देहिनोऽस्मिन् यथा देहे कौमारं यौवनं जरा तथा देहान्तरप्राप्तिः धीरस्तत्र न मुह्यति. So, taking on another body for the Atma is as simple as moving from childhood to youth to old age. It is only another situation, it's only another state. Therefore, the wise who know the difference between Atma and Anatma do not grieve that this body is dying. And in Arjuna's situation, he was thinking he's going to kill his uncles, his grandfather, and his teacher. What essentially was as though being killed is only the physical body. The Atma is eternal. But in order to reinstate Dharma, he had to do what he had to do. Dharma here is with reference to the ephemeral world, the empirical world, right? Whereas this Atma Jnana is in the absolute. Is the absolute. So, having this knowledge of the absolute, we will have to live in this empirical world doing our dharma. It might seem like how Arjuna had this doubt. You're talking of highest knowledge, you're talking of jnana, so why can't I just go become a sannyasi and not get into this terrible act of killing? Krishna had to bring him down and get him rooted in his duty, which is dharma.
Hari Om, it just, I mean, I don't know whether it is relevant or not, but Chandrasekhar Azad and Bhagat Singh, they were so firm in their dharma that when they, before dying, they said that you will kill my this physical body, but I will come again and again with the same conviction
Mm.
to get the freedom of motherland.
Yeah.
Even for that matter, Vivekananda also.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Everyone, who had gone to the jail, they have studied this Bhagavad Gita and they have come fresh, They say this body was just nothing. My conviction is different. So almost Tilak, everyone has read Bhagavad Gita, and that made them strong. They found the solution in Bhagavad Gita.
So we'll move on to the next verse. So the wise person is one who knows what is real, Atma, and what is unreal, Anatma. Further, Krishna said, Matra sparshastu kaunteya shitoshna sukha dukkadaha agama payino nityaha tam stitikshasva bharata. Kaunteya, O son of Kunti, Arjuna, Matra sparshaha, the contacts of the sense organs with the sensory world. Tu, indeed, Shita Ushna Sukha Dukkadaha, which give rise to cold and heat, pleasure and pain. Agama Apayinaha, which are of the nature of coming and going. Anityaha, not constant. Bharata, O descendant of Bharata, Arjuna, Tan, them, Titikshasva, endure. Kaunteya, Matra Sparshaha, Tu Shita Ushna Sukha Dukkadaha, Agama Apayinaha, Anityaha, Bharata, Tan Titikshasva. O son of Kunti, the contacts of the sense organs with the sensory world, which give rise to cold and heat, pleasure and pain, which have the nature of coming and going, are not constant. Endure them, O descendant of Bharata. Given that the Atma never dies, that it always survives, as Krishna said, it seems that the sorrow caused by the death of a person is not reasonable and therefore not very legitimate. That there may be no sorrow for the person who knows the Atma to be eternal and the Anatma to be non eternal is also possible. However, in this life, sorrow does occur because of certain changes that take place. Situations do not go your way all the time. You do not call all the shots. Things keep changing, some of them favorably, and many of them not so favorably. Some situations are pleasant, others unpleasant. That which is pleasant does not last, while the unpleasant seems to stick to me most of the time. There is therefore both pleasure, sukha, and pain, dukkha. The pleasant arrives and must pass away for the unpleasant to come. For instance, people begin to wail about winter long before it actually comes. As the summer ebbs away, they wail about that too. Even when summer is there, it is going. Thus, when winter is not there, it is coming. And when it is there, it seems not to be going at all. Half the summer is gone because of clouds, and another part of it is frittered away by rain. When it is hot, it is too hot. Because the seasons keep on changing, we find that sukha and dukkha keep on occurring. The pleasant has gone and the unpleasant has come accompanied by sorrow. The sorrow is not due to Atma going and coming, but purely because of the situational context. This being the case, is there not a legitimate sorrow? Krishna talked here about the nature of the sense organs and the sensory world. The sense organs, matras, contact sense objects. And these contacts, parshaha, give you the experience of cold, heat, pleasure, pain, etc. Shita, Ushna, Sukha, Dukkha, Daha. The knowledge that something is cold or hot produces a response that this is pleasant, Sukha, or that this is unpleasant, Dukkha. Cold can be either pleasant or unpleasant, and so can anything hot. For instance, you do not go to the fireside on a hot day as you would when it is cold. Thus, heat is not always pleasant, and cold is not always unpleasant. We find that there is a uniformity in our responses and also, to a certain extent, a universality. The world is one of opposites, heat and cold, for example, and these opposites give us pleasure and pain, sukha and dukkha. Categorically, we may say that certain situations make us happy, like a pleasant sunny day. At the same time, however, there are people who want rain so much that they are praying for it. Therefore, the rain that you do not want, someone else may be praying for. These then are our responses which seem to give rise to sukha and dukkha, all due to contact of the sense organs with their objects. One may argue that if contacting heat and cold gives rise to sorrow, perhaps we should avoid contact with sense objects. But how can we? Krishna did
Can you
not
read?
say,
Can you read again the previous paragraph where the sparshan kaunteya, that sentence
yeah.
is
If you don't mind,
described?
I'll finish reading these two paras and then
Yeah,
we'll go.
thank you.
Huh? Actually, we are coming to the close. We will do that tomorrow, maybe. Huh? Krishna did not say we have to avoid the contacts. We need only understand them. Most of our problems are like this. They only need to be understood. What is to be understood here is that the tendency to come and go is the nature of opposites, heat and cold, pleasant and unpleasant, and so on. If you keep on saying it is hot, a time will come when the heat will be gone. It is the same with the cold. Therefore, they are not constant. They do not remain for you to complain about. Even if you want them to stay, they will not. They are always in a flux, constantly changing. And this nature of their being in constant flux does not change. We cannot totally remove ourselves from the opposites or remove them from us. This is not to say that one should not make an attempt to improve a situation. But if things must always be pleasant for you, Lord Krishna was making it very clear here that they would not be, because things are both pleasant and unpleasant. They are not always going to be as you want, nor are they always going to be unpleasant either. So beautifully explained. The opposite values are complementary here, right? So I'll just go back. I know we've completed 6 o'clock here. You wanted me to read from here, right? Krishna here talked about the nature of sense organs and the sensory world. The sense organs, matras, contact sense objects. And these contacts, parshaha, give you the experience of cold, heat, pleasure, pain, etc. The knowledge that something is cold or hot produces a response that is pleasant, sukha, or that is unpleasant, dukkha. We'll stop here today. We'll do a bit of manana before we close. And tomorrow, I think we'll repeat this one more time before going to the next verse. Matra sparshastu kaunteya शीतोष्णसुखदुःखदाः आगमापायिनो नित्याः तां स्थितिक्षस्व भारत. So endure them. He's saying, endure them, Kamteya, endure them, Bharata. Because why? It is their nature. The moment your sense objects are contacted by the sense organs, there is the opposites start happening. Sometimes it's pleasant, sometimes it's unpleasant. It is not constant. But if you remember, the Jivatma, the truth about Jivatma is what? He wants to get out of this, of being limited. Therefore, we seek constancy, we seek eternity, which is why we want to hold on to things which are pleasant. And that is where raga comes in. And then we don't want those that are unpleasant. Dvesha sets in. So
I
the
was
Here,
wondering.
Matra Sparsh.
huh?
Mm, carry on.
Right. I was just wondering, like, if everything would have been constant, then what would happen? Like
Boring.
if
It's boring, right? Which is why they say the world was created. The world
yeah,
of diversity.
it was for the Brahmas. We are the objects of playing for Brahma. What we read, no? Like he wanted some activity, so he created humans. Yeah.
The word always should be totally eliminated from our dictionary.
Yeah. So this verse actually brings us to understand that nothing in the empirical world, nothing is constant. Because the moment the sense organs contact the sense objects, there will be the pairs of opposites start. The contacts of the sense organs with the sensory world, which give rise to cold and heat, pleasure and pain, which have the nature of coming and going, are not constant. Therefore, endure them. Rise above that and endure them.
Before here, death causes sadness or there is a dukkha. So in this shloka, how it get fitted? Because the sensory organs are not getting that matra and sparsha, that all true. And there will not be a duality. But death gives sadness. Before we have read that. So how this shloka gets fitted in the sukha dukkha?
Sukha dukkha is only for a person who is alive, no? It is not with reference to death.
The other sees the death of their loved one. Here Arjuna is going to see, or he was thinking ki all will be dead because of me. M- if I fight, there he was sad. So in this shloka, okay, because he was seeing them as a form, and that's how he is getting grieved. Okay.
Yeah. We'll go.
Krishna is building up dispassion in Arjuna through all these verses. Yes, of course, the truth, telling him the truth, and building up dispassion.
He is giving him the nature of the body mind sense complex. The moment the body mind sense complex encounters the world, or the sense organs encounter the world, there will be experiences of pleasure and pain. The pairs of opposites make their. In deep sleep, there is no pleasure pain, right? There is only one state. It's only when we wake up, when our eyes look at, when our ears start hearing, or when we start tasting, that there is this pairs of opposites happen. Oh, this dish is sweet, this is not, this is tasty, this is not tasty. This is something, this sight is something likable by me, this is not likable.
And the jnana of Atma and Anatma also. Then it will not cause the duality, means that Sukha Dukkha.
Yeah.
Sparshasu means the contact of the senses with the object. So when you
That's
get up,
not there. No, that is not there in deep sleep.
that is what. When
In
you
deep
get up,
sleep,
that
there is no contact of the sense organs with the sense objects. So there is no pleasure, pain, that pairs of opposites we don't experience there. It is only to a certain extent we experience that in dream state. Jagrat Swapna we experience, but Sushupti, there is no experience of. Sushupti is some state that we really enjoy. It's deep sleep. But it's still covered by ignorance. Therefore, we don't realize who we are, even after getting up. But in Jagrat and Swapna, because there is this constant interaction of the sense organs with the sense objects, matras parshastu kanteya. So what a beautiful analysis of how we experience, what happens out of this experience, and then how we are caught up in that experience. How we constantly want that which is pleasant and favorable, whereas the nature is such that they come and go. But the funny fact is, the interesting fact is, why do they come and go? What is it that makes them come and go?
anatma, impermanency.
Because they are in a constant flux.
Just like a wave, no? It's the waveform, up and down, up and down.
Yeah. See,
Today
if
is all
you,
wonder day. Like it's, I
yeah,
was listening, like even nature has not left the sleep part also. That is also divided in so many, like in parts: deep sleep, then sushupti, then dream state. Like it's so the life has been made made so you can say
Yeah, very,
interesting that yeah,
yeah.
it's
Yeah, like
all
if
these
you
are
take
affected. Yeah,
plant
you know,
or like the seed, it grows and a small plant and become a big tree. And with then the leaves come up and they also dry and fall completely. And then with the season changes, that's also always that example has been brought in many times about the vrisham and um, the ocean, like you said, the waves. Mm, yeah, this changing is changing that we read yesterday, right?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Changing.
Changing is not the constant.
constantly changing, and we are also changing every day. Everything, even in animate matter also, like the food you take, everything, like, you keep it more than 1 day, 2 days, it's all gone. And the fruit also same way, it's nice when it's ripe, and after that, if you leave it for a few more days to ripen, then it gets destroyed. So in nature, everything,
But
even
what is not changing? What is not changing is that
Atma,
when
that the
even
Atma,
we have
yeah.
grown so old, like 50s,
Yeah, in your
50s,
heart,
we
you
are
feel
in,
you're still
yeah,
young, right? You have the
that
same.
inner eye. Yeah, that inner eye remains the same. It's,
Yeah.
yeah, very beautiful.
Yeah, that which remains constant, that which is witness to the change, that is changeless, that is unchanging.
Mm.
And we are that unchanging entity.
Because that is not changing, we are seeing the changes.
Mhm.
Yeah, very true.
There should be some point to see the change, no? So that should stay there. Then only we find the change. Hmm. And that is I, and that is the witness.
So we can use this today, use this knowledge um, when we encounter events, situations, experiences. Just reflect back on this. Matra sparshastu kaunteya, shitoshna sukha dukkadaha. So we'll close here today. Om loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Om shanti shanti shanti. Om Tat Sat Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. Jai Gurudev.
Very good, Dave. Thank you.
Thank you.